Hello there. I am vlogging in my garden, and it is a beautiful, crisp morning here in Andover, which nobody has heard of. The birds are chirping, the traffic is going by, and the sky is blue as fuck. I don't know if you can't see that. It just looks like sort of ethereal heaven vibes in the sky. But yeah, check it out. Check out the view. I'm quite cold actually. I'm quite chilly. I found that when I'm cold, I get like anxious. Like I'm much more likely to get anxious when I'm cold. It's like my body mistakes the like the the sort of shivery it's the shivers. My body seems to like mistake that for anxiety, and so I'm much more likely to get anxious when I'm cold. Or if I get anxious when I'm cold, like it tends to be a lot harder to deal with. I put out a vlog yesterday. I think I haven't thought of a title for it, but I think I'm going to put part of the title as coping with anxiety, because I was talking about how we how we don't have to be anxious as much as we do, especially during times like preparing for exams and preparing for interviews. How we don't have to be so anxious, because if we get into the habit of bringing our attention as fully into the present moment as possible, for example, through being mindful and conscious of our breathing and the sensations of breathing, what that does is it reels in our mind from the future, from the future we have created in our minds, in which everything is going wrong. We're homeless because, so in the example of exam anxiety, when you're sitting in a library, you're sitting in a lovely warm library, funded by you funded by the indebted servitude of tens of thousands of students who are going to be paying off their loans for 30 years. So you've got this lovely, well furnished, well air conditioned, heated library with lovely furniture, and you're sat there in this like multi-million-pound building, but in your mind, like you're actually like it's 3 years in the future. You're homeless because you've failed all your exams, because you're incompetent and useless, and now you're on the streets. Your parents have disowned you because they paid so much money to get you off to uni, and you still fucked up all your exams. So in like their pure contempt, they've thrown you out of the door, and now you're homeless, and you're on the streets, and people are trying to steal your sleeping bag, and this is all because you failed your exams. So you're sat in the library, and like this is the reality. This is the future you're creating in your head, or like it's probably not the future, but this is the example, just for kind of for explanatory purposes. So in your mind, your reality is this like catastrophic future where you're like you're homeless, and people trying to steal your sleeping bag, and your brain can't tell the difference between this like imagined future scenario and your reality, which is like you're in like a lovely, well furnished, heated library. But while we aren't aware of our thoughts as thoughts, which we aren't, because normally we're not. Normally we're lost in thought. We don't spend much of our day aware of the fact that we are thinking. Normally we're just thinking, letting our thoughts go, getting lost in thought, or we're distracting ourselves from thought. We don't spend much time just like fully like conscious with our awareness on the fact that we are thinking, that our thoughts are thoughts. So we spend most of our time believing our thoughts, and during important periods like exam preparation periods or preparing for a job interview, our thoughts tend to become catastrophic thoughts about the future, like movies of future scenarios where everything has gone wrong. And in those moments, if we aren't aware, if we aren't consciously observing our thoughts, and in doing so seeing them as thoughts, not believing them, if we aren't present and observing our thoughts in these during these important times where we're preparing ourselves, our body cannot tell the difference between the scenario in our head and the reality of where we are. So if we're sat in a lovely, well-furnished, heated library, but in our head we are on this cold streets being attacked by all these people trying to steal, like, you've got a really fucking nice sleeping bag that like you used to take to festivals when you were a teenager, and it's like a deluxe sleeping bag. It's got loads of padding and shit, and it's got like a fucking hood that comes all the way over like your forehead. So like it's a really fucking nice sleeping bag, and it's like the last like nice possession that you have. But like people are trying to like take this away from you now, and it's all because like this wouldn't be happening if you just like passed your exams like 3 years ago. And these are the thoughts you're having, like these are the thoughts you're having when you're in a well-furnished, heated library, and while you're not observing your thoughts, while you're not aware of thoughts as thoughts, your body can't tell the difference between like the reality of where you are in the library, heated library, and the imagined reality of you on the streets and people trying to steal your sleeping bag. So your body creates the physical response that it would need if it was going to defend against sleeping bag thieves. And so like if anxiety is actually preparing you, you know, to it's your fight or flight response which the body is producing because it feels like it's being, you know, attacked by thieves, and it also feels like it's on the streets. So yeah, like that doesn't. It could be like it's obviously not like the common scenario that causes people to get anxious when they're preparing for exams, but it is like it's the same sort of thing with any scenario. Like we could be sat preparing for a job interview, and in our heads we are thinking about how like as a result of messing up this interview, like we're going to have a really hard time getting jobs in the future, and we're going to have to go back to the boring job hunt, and it's all going to be really shit. And then even further into the future, it means we're not going to get like the job that we wanted, and we're going to be really unhappy, and then like everything, we're not going to get much money, and everything's going to be a struggle to stay alive and stay afloat because we haven't got like enough money. And like so then that again, like when we start to believe, you know, maybe we could be sat like in our living room at the time, like watching, well, we could just be, or not in the living room, sat in your bedroom, like pondering over the job description of this job that you want to get. But like so you're in your like warm room, you know, the radiator's on, it's winter, and like your room is heated, and you've got a dressing gown on, and you've got bedding and everything, but in your head you're thinking about in 30 years time, and like you're poor and broke, and like your parents don't respect you, and because you fucked up this job interview, and then like you fucked up all the others, and now it's, you know, it's 30 years later, and like you're like on the poverty line, and everything is a struggle to survive, and so that becomes, and you're actually sat in your like nice warm room with like a dressing gown on and like the bedding everywhere, but in your head you've transported to this future place, and while you're not observing your thoughts as thoughts, while we aren't mindful and conscious of our thoughts, the imagined reality, the imagined future, our body perceives that as reality because it can't differentiate between thought and reality unless we are, observing our thoughts consciously. So you're in your warm room with dressing gown on and heating and bedding everywhere, but in your mind you're transported to like this catastrophic future where everything is a struggle for survival and nobody likes you, and so your body starts to produce again adrenaline chemicals to put you in like a state of vigilance for threats, because you might have the threat of, if you don't have much money in the future, like you're going to have the threat of eviction always hanging over you, or if no one likes you in the future because you've like fucked up your job interview, that you're going to have the threat of rejection in this imagined future scenario. So your body is producing all these chemicals to put you in a state of vigilance and readiness to like either fight or run the fuck away. So you're sat in your room, notes for the job interview tomorrow in front of you. You've got a dressing gown on and you're it's warm, but like, and you're safe, but because you're thinking of this like monstrous future where everything is fucked up and you're not observing your thoughts consciously, your body's believing it. So now you're sat in your like safe room, but like your body is telling you that your body's telling you you're not safe. Basically, anxiety is your body telling you that you're not safe. There is threat, and a lot of the time the threat is simply like we are believing our thoughts. We're creating a catastrophic scenario in our heads, and then we're believing that, and our body is producing the appropriate response. Because like, what else? Like, it doesn't know any better. Like, it's just what the body will do. So that this sort of anxiety is a loss of focus on the present moment in favor of the future. Like, all our energy is focused on the future, which is actually just like a scenario in our heads, and we've lost our connection with the present moment. So in the last video I was saying, it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be so. It doesn't have to be that every time because that anxiety is actually quite helpful. Like, even if it can be quite helpful, like, anxiety is a good motivating force. Like, good in the sense that like in terms of it's a big stick to drive you towards that high grade shit. But it's not good in the sense that it's fucking awful for your body. And if all your achievements are motivated by anxiety, like you just like have this weird toxic relationship with anxiety, where like it helps you get good grades, but it also like just fucks you up internally, like ruins your sense of peace and contentment, and like just your quality of life is like just ruined, because like you're actually doing externally you have all these amazing achievements, but because they've all been driven by anxiety, and you need the anxiety and you feel you need it in order to do well, your like quality of life is just like destroyed, because it's actually like everything is anxiety driven, and your whole life becomes then based on anxiety, and like you become like a prisoner of your anxiety. You become a prisoner of your ambitions, because you have all these ambitions, and you create and you're imagining this yourself in the future having failed to meet your ambitions, and you're imagining the consequences of this. So then anxiety is how you. It's the anxiety it's the anxiety about failing to meet your ambitions which holds you hostage. Even if externally you do have a lot of success. And I'm saying it doesn't have to be like, you can achieve. I'm not saying I've achieved great things, but you can achieve great things, because I've managed to get the same grades in different exam periods. Just one time motivated like by anxiety and stress, and the second time just not really feeling like, barely feeling like stressed at all. Like not feeling, still like challenging, but it was never stressful, or barely ever stressful. Which it has been for like most of my life, but the last 2 exam periods I managed to like crack working without stress. And it's a matter of being as present as possible. And it's the same thing with preparing for a job interview, or any preparing for anything which like is important to you. The more present you are during that preparation, and the more you're choosing to focus on your surroundings, on your breathing, on your physical sensations, on or just like the inside like of your body, like feeling the energy there, like instead of being lost in your thoughts all the time, believing all these scenarios about the future. It doesn't even matter if your mind is full of all these like crazy, like just terrible situations which are going to happen in the future, where like you failed to do the thing and everything's gone wrong. Your mind could be like completely full of these things, totally full of them, and you can be in a state of bliss and like just joy, and like the deciding factor is whether or not you are believing the thoughts or not, whether you're observing them consciously or whether you're lost in them, because it doesn't actually matter what is happening in your thinking mind, as long as you are aware of it as thought. As long as you aren't believing the content of your mind, as long as you aren't mistaking it for reality, as long as we are observing and consciously putting our attention on our thoughts, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what's going through your head, because we can see that we can see it as thoughts. We can see it as a sort of transparent, which is what all thought is sort of transparent until we like believe and like believe it, and we start to fear it, and we imagine it to be. We turn our thoughts into a reality, and then our body produces the appropriate response to that. And that, in the case of preparing for exams and job interviews, is often anxiety. And the way out of that is just bringing our attention into the present moment as often as possible, especially during times like preparing for a job interview or preparing for an exam. I haven't given any sort of story of my own here. So for my last exam season, I had 4 exams, and I'd done 2 of them. The last 2 were 1 week apart. I was revising really hard for the first of the 2. Didn't feel quite ready for it, but I'm like, you know what, like, I'm just trying to get this out of the way. So then the night before, I was sat in my living room with my housemate at the time, Izzy, and I was going over my some notes with her about the exam, and then I thought, okay, time to call it a day. get to bed, get some rest, get an early night, you get up and like be ready to smash this. So yeah, I went to check where my exam was, and I was like, oh, like they've mixed the dates up on this list. Like they've put the wrong date for the exam tomorrow, and they've said that it's in a week, and the one in a week is today. Then I was like, I kept like checking. I'm like, oh shit, like have I? Oh, I've revised for the wrong exam. Like I've revised for the exam in a week's time, and I've got an exam tomorrow, which I haven't revised for. And at this point, like anxiety started to come up because I started to like go into my future where I'm like, you know, oh, I'm gonna fuck up this exam, and I'm gonna get a really shit grade, I'm gonna fail my degree, and I'm gonna not be able to get any jobs, and my parents aren't gonna like me, and I'm gonna be homeless on the street, people are gonna steal my sleeping bag, blah, blah, blah. Like this began, the very like beginnings of that process started, but I was like, straight away, like went totally like inside my body, like with my attention, like just like became as present as I could, like I've become aware of my surroundings more intensely than I have been before. Just bring all my attention inwards into my body instead of letting it be dragged along by this like fearful mind pattern, creating all these like painful, scary future situations. I stayed inside my body, and you know, I had a bit of anxiety at first, but then like it never fucking became a tidal wave of panic and fear, which it would have a year before then. I'd have lost my absolute shit if I had discovered that a year ago. Like I'd have been an absolute mess. I probably wouldn't have slept. I'd have been like fucking tired as shit when I got to the exam. And I would have been like probably depressed for like, you know, months after that. But no, this time, as soon as I found out that I fucked up so massively, straight away like brought my attention inside my body. And I was like, so then that meant I could actually think clearly because I was still present and like I was in this reality. What's going on there? Yeah, and oh, the sun's coming up. That's why. And I was able to think clearly. I was like, well, I've done my coursework on this module, so I already know something about it, and it's fairly short questions, so I can just get some sleep and get up early and revise the slides that I know I haven't gone over. And I managed to actually get some sleep, like after finding out that I'd revised for the wrong exam, and I had the exam like the morning after in hours time, in like a few hours time. I actually managed to get some sleep. I woke up and I, you know, did like an hour or two of revision, and like I was calm at the exam. Like I was just like, it's like was able to keep my shit and keep my head straight. I was actually like just kind of enjoying myself because I was enjoying the fact that I wasn't freaking out, and like I'd already kind of like knew that I wasn't going to do very well at the exam, so like it took a bit of the pressure off. But like a year ago, I would have gone mental. Like I would have been in a state. So yeah, it's definitely like it doesn't, whether it's like for an exam or job interview, whether it's approaching that guy or girl that you find really attractive, whether it's just like being in queue for like fucking Tesco's or something, or queuing up to buy something, and you start to feel a bit anxious because you're imagining what they're going to say and how they're going to judge you. Just like bring your attention into your body. Like as soon as you start to feel that like anxiety response coming up, go into the body, because that makes us more present, and it also grounds us so we can see our thoughts as thoughts and we don't believe them, because it's when we believe the thoughts, when we believe the scenarios they create, that believe them that they are going to happen, and we don't see them as thoughts, and we fear them and resist them, our body like has to respond to them, because it can't distinguish between thought and reality until we become conscious of our thoughts, until we observe our thoughts, at which point the body can rest and the anxiety goes away. So that you can apply that to any area of your life. As soon as anxiety starts to come up, as soon as your mind starts to create all these scenarios, bring your attention inwards as you can. That's pretty bad grammar that I just said then. But yeah, that's like my least ambling video. I've kind of stayed to one topic there, which is interesting. See you later.